Palestinian militant group Hamas released 3 Israeli hostages on Saturday, as Israel freed dozens of Palestinian prisoners. It's the latest in a ceasefire deal aimed at ending the 15-month war in Gaza. Ohad Benami and Eli Sharabi were both taken hostage from Kibbutz Be'eri during the cross-border Hamas-led attack on October 7, 2023. Or Levi was abducted that same day from the Nova Music Festival. The 3 men all appeared thin, weak and pale, and in worse condition than the previously freed hostages. Family and friends cheered and cried as they watched their release live on television. Though relatives spoke of their pain of seeing them in that condition.
He doesn't look like himself. He looks like he suffered a lot for such a long time, not being at home. And it was very difficult for me to see him like that, very, very hard.
Dozens of Hamas militants were deployed in central Gaza as it handed hostages over to the International Committee of the Red Cross. The hostages were then driven in ICRC cars to Israeli forces and into Israel, where they were reunited with family members. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the sight of the frail hostages was shocking and would be addressed. In exchange for the hostages' release, Israel said it was freeing 183 Palestinian prisoners, as well as 111 detained in Gaza during the war. Cheering crowds greeted the buses as they arrived in Gaza. 6 people released in the West Bank were in poor health and taken to hospitals, according to Palestinian medics. The first phase of the ceasefire has largely held since it took effect on January 19. However, fears have grown that the deal might collapse before all 76 remaining hostages held by Hamas are freed. Concerns intensified after US President Donald Trump's surprise call to develop Gaza into, quote, the Riviera of the Middle East. Arab states and Palestinian groups have rejected Trump's proposal, while Netanyahu welcomed his intervention. Negotiations on the second phase began this week, aimed at returning the remaining hostages and agreeing a full withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza in preparation for a final end to the war.
My first question is just how are you? Mixed up.
A bit wobbly, very emotional morning, indeed.
Yes, it was.
What made it was when we actually saw Ellie, was to see the emaciated state that they've put him in. An absolute disgrace, and that was an absolute shock, and we both sat and cried.
Yeah. And disgusted about the grandstanding, you know, the false interviews. Obviously they've been told what to say, and this business of having a certificate, and at least they didn't give them any doggy bags like they did with the girls when they came out.
And making them wave to the crowd. I mean, it's just an awful stage show.
Yeah, it was absolutely disgusting.
But the worst part was the emaciated look of all 3 of them, but in particular Ellie, because he's got quite a chubby face normally, and
full of smiles.
Usually full of smiles.
Bright eyes.
But you see the film of him with hollow eyes and sunken cheeks, and his wrists were sticks.
I mean, he was wearing baggy clothes, but you could see how skinny he was just from his wrists, you know, and his face. From his face, he was gaunt. It's the only thing you can, you know.
But the good thing is he's back with his family now. I should think by now that he's met up with his sisters
and his mum
and his brother. So it's just the recovery starts.
It's a very, very long road. It's going to be a very long road for him.
The shock for you both, though, after, you know, for many of these last months, you weren't sure if he was actually even alive. Until the last couple of days, you weren't sure he was alive.
We didn't know until 4:30 yesterday afternoon when it was announced that he was on the list. And once they said he was on the list, we knew he was alive, because they'd said they're going to release 3 live hostages. So that began the roller coaster, really, for us, and until today.
And you compared seeing him to seeing like a concentration camp.
It looked as though he'd come out of a concentration camp, exactly, yeah. All three of them.
Yeah.
So what they've been through.
And he was literally the only thing you can think of. He was a shadow of his former self.
Literally, when I looked at it, the first thought that came into my mind was Belsen. It just reminded me of the pictures you see of Belsen in the Nazi concentration camps.
So he's, being so pale, he's obviously been kept in tunnels.
But it just showed the sheer inhumanity of Hamas and Palestine. Absolute disgrace. Can't say any more about that, really.
That's physically, mentally, we don't yet know. Who knows?
No, we don't.
We don't know
because there were no witnesses. No. In other cases, some of the hostage families knew they were alive, or they were taken because there's various videos or anything, or they saw them being taken. But nobody saw Eddie going, and nobody saw what happened with our girls. All we do know is that they were found outside the safe room, all together.
Yeah, we don't know whether Ellie had been taken out of the house hostage before they shot the three girls, but it obviously happened very, very quickly, because they had just come out of the safe room, and they were outside the safe room when they were mowed down, and the three of them were laid on the floor together.
This day's as hard as it was right at the beginning again, isn't it?
Yes, because seeing Ellie coming out now, it just brought everything back. We sat and bawled our eyes out. We really did. I was sitting there cuddling Leanne's teddy bear, and I think I made him wet, actually. But yeah, it reminded us of what we'd lost and what it's going to be like for Ellie.
Yeah.
If and when he finds out.
I mean, if Ellie did see his wife and two daughters mown down, he's had to live with that for the last 16 months. If he didn't see it, then somebody's had to tell him today that your family are gone.
You have no family to go home to.
And he probably doesn't know that his brother was killed in Gaza in January last year. Because they were taken separately, so they probably weren't together. So even if he knew his family were gone, he probably didn't know that his brother had died in captivity as well.
So this marks the start of a very new, painful journey for all of you.
For all of us, really. Yeah. Yes.
For you, for Ellie.
Yeah. Particularly for Ellie.
We go to Israel soon. We fly in. Now, whether Ellie will be fit enough to see us,
if he'll want to
or be
see
ready to see us, we don't know. Obviously, we'd love to see him and give him a hug.
But everything now is focused on Ellie, his well-being, his health, his mental state.
Absolutely.
And he's got, Israel have made sure that anything they need, any help they need, all the hostages, is there for them.
Yeah. Physical and mental.
החמאסניק הזה מאפשר, אומר לרכבים להמשיך. גיהנום של שנה ממשקל גופם לא קל.
איזה נורא, מזהים אותו אבל הם בסדר. ועל אשתו והילדות?
רגע, אפשר להגיד שאלי שרעבי, מאלצים עכשיו את אלי שרעבי לתת את אותם דברי תעמולה שאילצו קודם את אוהד בן עמי, אז ההצגה היא אוהד בן עמי.
Today marks the fifth phase of the return of Israeli captives from Gaza, where they were held by terrorist organizations. Ohad Ben Ami, Eliyahu Sharabi, and Or Levy returned home safely. They were denied the fundamental human right to live free lives for 491 days. This morning, we witnessed significant weight loss that represent the severe conditions which endured by Hamas. These scenes presenting challenging and complex visual for the families of the returns from captive, their families of captives, and ourselves. The Israeli healthcare system, committed to offering comprehensive, therapeutic, emotional and physical support to the family of the returnees and the captives as well. The healthcare systems, medical professionals and Ministry of Health, together with all the people of Israel, are overjoyed by the return of the captives and are hopeful for the quick return of all remaining captives.
Today marks the day 491 that our loved ones are held captive in hell in Gaza. Everyone watching now fully understands what hell actually means. We are all shattered seeing the dreadful condition that our 3 hostages who were released from terrorist captivity this morning are in. Jews are suffering Holocaust at terrorists' hands. Our loved ones are enduring a Holocaust. And the Prime Minister of the Jewish state is enjoying life in luxury hotels in Washington, D.C., doing his best to torpedo the deal which would end their Holocaust. Mr. Netanyahu, you said you would not let this stand. You said you would take action. The horrendous conditions of our hostages, which the public was exposed to only today, you have known about for a long, long time.
We'd like to address U.S. President Donald Trump. Mr. President, sir, we know that you are committed to the release of all remaining hostages and to the agreement which you successfully secured. It is thanks to you that our hostages are being released from captivity and coming home. But we are very concerned with what we are seeing. We see how Netanyahu is attempting to sabotage the deal which you made happen.
מחזירים את אוהד הביתה, ויש שם רוכב אופניים, שזה בעצם כן, זה שלך, זה עליך. אימא'לה!